90% of GMC owners make at least one of these fuel mistakes every single time they fill up. And the damage doesn't show up on a dashboard warning. It shows up 50,000 miles later as a failed pump, a saturated canister, or an engine that's lost power it's never getting back. I've gone through every fuel-related failure pattern on these trucks. 10 mistakes, all avoidable. Most of them cost nothing to fix, but ignoring them costs hundreds or thousands. The most common one? You probably did it last time you filled up. Let's start there. Topping off the tank, the pump clicks. It's done, but you squeeze the handle one more time. Maybe two, maybe three. You want a round number on the receipt. You want the gauge to sit perfectly on full. That habit is destroying a part you've probably never heard of. Your GMC has an EVAP system, an emission system designed to capture fuel vapors from the tank and route them through a charcoal canister before they reach the atmosphere. That canister is designed to absorb vapor, not liquid. When you keep squeezing after the pump clicks, you're forcing liquid fuel into a system that was only built for gas fumes. The charcoal inside the canister saturates. Once it's saturated, it can't do its job anymore. The EVAP system throws a code. Your check engine light comes on. And now, you're looking at a canister replacement that runs $150 to $350 because you wanted a round number on the receipt. And it gets worse. On GM trucks specifically, the EVAP system is more sensitive than most. The purge valve and vent valve are calibrated to handle specific vapor pressures. Liquid fuel in the system throws those calibrations off and can trigger secondary codes that make diagnosis more expensive. Here's what that diagnosis looks like. The shop hooks up a smoke machine to pressurize the EVAP system and find the leak. They test the purge valve. They test the vent valve. They inspect lines. That diagnostic alone runs $75 to $150. And if the canister is saturated, they're replacing it, plus the labor to access it, which on some GM trucks means dropping part of the exhaust or removing panels. Total bill, $200 to $400. For topping off, the fix is the easiest one on this entire list. The pump clicks, you stop. That's it. Don't round up. Don't squeeze one more time. The pump stopped because your tank is full. Trust it, it's not a minor habit. That's a $300 mistake disguised as 5 cents. This next one seems harmless too, until you understand what's happening under the hood while you're standing at the pump, fueling with the engine running. Most people know you're supposed to turn the engine off, but most people think it's just a fire safety thing. On a GM truck, it's more than that. When your engine is running, the EVAP system is active. The purge valve is cycling, pulling fuel vapors from the canister into the intake manifold to be burned. If you're pumping fuel into the tank at the same time, you're adding fresh vapors into a system that's actively trying to manage existing ones. The pressure dynamics in the tank change. The EVAP system gets confused. And on trucks with sensitive EVAP monitors, this can set codes that trigger a check engine light. It's not going to blow up your truck, but it can set a code that costs you a diagnostic fee, a failed emissions test, or hours of troubleshooting a problem that never needed to exist. Turn the engine off before you fuel. Every time. Not because of the fire risk, because of the $200 diagnostic bill you're avoiding. Now, this next one isn't about what you do at the pump. It's about what you put in the tank. Fuel grade. And this is where most GMC owners are either wasting money or leaving performance on the table. If you've got a 5.3 liter, the manual says 87 octane, regular. That's what the engine was designed for. The compression ratio on a Gen 4 5.3 is 10 to 1. It doesn't need premium. It can't use premium. Putting 93 octane in a 5.3 is lighting money on fire. You're paying 30 to 40 cents more per gallon for zero benefit. The engine doesn't make more power. It doesn't get better fuel economy. You're just paying more for the same result. Now, the 6.2 is a different story. The compression ratio is 11.5 to 1. GM recommends 93 octane. You can run 87, it won't damage the engine. The knock sensors will detect pre-detonation and retard the timing to compensate. But that timing retard costs you 15 to 20 horsepower and 1 to 2 miles per gallon. You bought a 420 horsepower engine and you're running it at 400. You're paying less per gallon but getting less per mile. Let's put a number on it. The average 6.2 owner drives 15,000 miles a year. At 93 octane, you're spending maybe $200 more per year on fuel than 87. But you're getting that 15 to 20 horsepower back, better throttle response, and 1 to 2 more miles per gallon, which actually offsets most of that cost. You're paying a little more per gallon, but burning fewer gallons. The math is closer to even than most people think. Here's the thing. If you own a 6.2 and you've been running 87, you've never actually experienced what your engine can do. Fill it with 93 once. You'll feel the difference in the first mile. And if you own a 5.3 and you've been buying premium because someone told you it's better for the engine, stop. Put that extra 30 cents per gallon back in your pocket. Your engine doesn't know the difference. Quick thing. If this is helping you avoid expensive mistakes, hit subscribe. I put out videos every week breaking down what actually matters on these trucks and what's just costing you money for no reason. This next one can cause real damage. Not gradual. Not over 50,000 miles. Potentially in one tank. 85 in a non-flex fuel truck. Not every 5.3 liter is flex fuel. They look identical from the outside. Same engine cover, same exhaust note. But internally, a flex fuel 5.3 has hardened valve seats, different fuel injectors with higher flow rates, a different fuel pump, and fuel lines and seals rated for high ethanol content. A non-flex fuel 5.3 has none of that. If you pump E85 into a non-flex fuel truck, two things happen. First, the fuel injectors can't flow enough fuel to compensate for E85's lower energy content. The engine runs lean. Lean means hotter combustion temperatures, which means potential damage to valves, pistons, and catalytic converters. Second, the ethanol in E85 is corrosive to fuel system components that aren't designed for it. Rubber seals, fuel lines, and O-rings that are perfectly fine on regular gasoline will degrade over time with high ethanol exposure. One tank probably won't destroy your engine, but repeated fills absolutely will. Here's how you check. Open your glove box. Look for the RPO sticker. It's a white label with a list of codes. If you see the code E85 or the flex fuel designation, you're good. If you don't, your truck is gasoline only. Don't rely on the fuel cap color. Older GM trucks don't always have the yellow cap that indicates flex fuel. Let me be clear. This isn't about fuel economy. This is about putting the wrong fuel in an engine that can't handle it. Know your truck before you pick the pump. But here's what nobody talks about. The fuel you choose matters, but where you buy it matters just as much. Top-tier gasoline versus non-top tier. And this isn't marketing. This is chemistry. GM officially recommends top-tier gasoline for all their vehicles. Top tier is a fuel standard, not a brand, that requires higher levels of detergent additives than the EPA minimum. The EPA minimum is exactly that, the minimum. It's the bare floor of what's legally required. Top tier exceeds it significantly. AAA ran a study comparing top-tier fuel to non-top tier across thousands of miles. The result, non-top tier fuel created 19 times more carbon deposits on intake valves. 19 times. That carbon buildup restricts airflow, causes rough idle, reduces fuel economy, and eventually leads to misfires that cost real money to diagnose and fix. Here's what that looks like inside the engine. At 50,000 miles on top-tier fuel, the intake valves are relatively clean. Light tan deposits, nothing restricting airflow. At 50,000 miles on non-top tier, those same valves have thick, black carbon crust that narrows the airflow path. By 100,000 miles, the difference is dramatic. The non-top tier engine is down on power, running rougher and burning more fuel to do the same work. A walnut blasting or chemical cleaning to fix it runs $300 to $500. Top-tier brands include Shell, Chevron, Costco, BP, ExxonMobil, QuickTrip, and Sinclair, among others. The full list is on toptiergas.com. The price difference between top-tier and discount fuel is usually 5 to 10 cents per gallon. On a 20-gallon fill-up, that's $1 to $2. $1 to $2 per fill-up to prevent carbon buildup that leads to $100-plus cleaning services down the road. That's not an expense. That's the cheapest maintenance you'll ever do. Now, this next one has nothing to do with what fuel you buy. It's about when you buy it. Filling up right after the tanker delivers. You pull into the station and see the fuel tanker parked there, hoses connected, filling the underground tanks. Most people don't think twice. But here's what's happening below ground. Those underground storage tanks accumulate sediment and water at the bottom over time. It sits there, settled, harmless, until a tanker dumps several thousand gallons on top of it. The force of that delivery stirs everything up. Sediment, water, rust particles, all of it gets mixed into the fuel that's now being pumped into your truck. Your fuel filter will catch some of it. But on GM trucks, the in-tank fuel pump has a strainer that's the first line of defense, and it's not designed to handle a surge of contaminated fuel. Over time, repeated exposure to dirty fuel clogs that strainer, reduces fuel flow, and stresses the pump. The rule is simple. If you see the tanker, come back later. A few hours is enough for everything to settle back down. It's not an emergency, it's just a smart habit. Stay with me here, because this next one is short, serious, and more real than most people think. Static electricity. This one takes 10 seconds to explain and 10 seconds to prevent. When you get back into your vehicle during fueling, especially in cold, dry weather, your body builds up a static charge from the seat fabric. You walk back to the pump, reach for the nozzle, and that charge discharges right at the fuel vapor zone. The Petroleum Equipment Institute has documented fires caused by exactly this scenario. It's rare, but it's real, and it's completely preventable. The rule: before you touch the nozzle after re-entering your vehicle, touch a metal part of your truck's body first. The door frame, the bed rail, anything metal that's grounded, that discharges the static safely, then grab the nozzle. Don't get back in your vehicle during fueling if you don't have to. If you do, discharge before you touch anything near the fuel filler. 10 seconds of awareness, that's all it takes. Now, back to the things that cost money. This next one is the most common check engine light on GM trucks, and the fix costs less than lunch. Your fuel cap. GM trucks run a pressurized fuel system. The cap isn't just a lid, it's a seal that maintains pressure in the EVAP system. When that seal wears out, cracks, or doesn't click tight, the system detects a leak. Check engine light. EVAP code, failed emissions test. This is the single most common reason for a check engine light on GM trucks, and the fix is a $10 to $18 fuel cap from any parts store. But here's why it matters beyond the light. If you're driving around with a check engine light caused by a bad fuel cap, you can't see any other codes that might come up. A real problem, a misfire, a transmission issue, a failing sensor, gets masked because the light is already on. You ignore it because you think it's just the cap. And by the time you find out it wasn't, the real problem has gotten worse and more expensive. Replace the cap, clear the code. Keep that warning light available for when it actually matters. This next one is the most expensive mistake on this list, and you're making it every time your fuel gauge drops below a quarter tank. Running your tank low, habitually, consistently. Below a quarter tank, fill up $20, run it back down, repeat. Your fuel pump sits inside the tank. It's an electric motor submerged in gasoline. And that gasoline isn't just fuel, it's coolant. The fuel surrounding the pump absorbs heat and keeps the motor from overheating. When the fuel level drops below a quarter tank, the pump starts to be exposed. It runs hotter, the motor works harder, and over thousands of cycles of running hot and cooling down, the pump wears out years before it should. A fuel pump replacement on a Sierra runs $800 to $1,400. Parts and labor. The pump itself is inside the tank, which means dropping the tank or pulling the bed to access it. It's not a quick job. And here's the pattern I see over and over. Owner runs the truck low constantly. At 120,000 miles, the pump starts whining. At 130, it starts losing pressure. At 140, it dies at a gas station. And the owner says the pump failed early. It didn't fail early. It failed exactly when you'd expect for a pump that spent half its life overheating. Keep it above a quarter tank. You don't need to run it full all the time. Just don't make a habit of running it empty. Your fuel pump will last twice as long. That's a $700 savings for doing absolutely nothing different except filling up one day sooner. One more. And this one catches people who store their trucks or only drive them on weekends. Old fuel. Gasoline degrades. It starts losing volatility after about 30 days. After 60 to 90 days, it can cause hard starts, rough idle, and poor combustion. And if your truck sits with a half-empty tank, moisture condenses inside the tank and mixes with the fuel. Now you've got water in your fuel system. Winter fuel and summer fuel are also different blends. Winter gasoline has higher butane content for easier cold starts. Summer fuel is formulated for stability and heat. If you fill a gas can in July and pour it into your truck in January, that fuel has degraded and it's the wrong seasonal blend. The fix is simple. If your truck sits for more than 30 days, add fuel stabilizer. Sta-Bil is the standard $8 to $12 a bottle, treats up to 40 gallons. Fill the tank full to minimize airspace and condensation. And when you do drive it, burn through that old fuel and refill with fresh. For weekend trucks, seasonal trucks, or any GMC that sits more than it drives. This is the difference between a truck that starts clean and a truck that stumbles for the first 5 minutes every time. 10 mistakes, all common, all avoidable. Most of them cost nothing to prevent, but hundreds or thousands to fix once the damage is done. The pattern is always the same. Small habits repeated over years, creating problems that feel sudden but aren't. Every one of these was building quietly while the truck ran fine. And by the time you notice, you're paying for 50,000 miles of accumulated damage. 90% of owners make at least one of these. Now you're in the 10% that doesn't. If you want to cut your fuel bill on top of protecting your fuel system, watch the old school method to cut your GMC fuel bill by 30% every month right here. And if you want to make your truck last past 300,000 miles, that one's right here. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.